Hey guys, it's Saturday1 again here, back again for another recent pickups video for you guys, and today I'm back covering everything I picked up in the month of March, and without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. Okay guys, and the first item I have to share with you guys is actually a really interesting piece of merch slash memorabilia for one of my most anticipated games this year. Obviously a huge, gigantic fan of the series, so it's really cool to have something related to this game already. So I had to import this. I thought it was really cool, and it had really cool cover art. And that's the Dengeki PlayStation February issue. So I imported this from Japan through a company called CD Japan, and I just thought the cover art was just so amazing. And obviously the main story in here covers Persona 5, but there's other write-ups in here for like Dragon Quest Heroes, Neptunia Victory 2, Persona 4 Dancing All Night, but obviously the main highlight is Persona 5 here. And it's got some screenshots and whatnot, and some Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and tons of other stuff. But yeah, it's really cool to have this. And the first game I have here for the PS Vita, it's actually a Vita game I've been wanting for quite a while, and actually for the longest time, the North American version of this game was just like one of the hardest to find PS Vita games. It just kept going up and up in price, and there was a nice limited edition for this game as well, but that was extremely limited, and at the time I didn't have a Vita, so I kind of passed on limited edition. But now looking back, I thought I was never going to be able to get this game because it was just so ridiculously hard to find for the longest time. Then I was kind of cruising through Amazon one day and I just saw it for like normal price again, and I was like, okay, I guess a bunch of brand new copies surfaced or something, so I snagged it right away because I'm actually a big fan of the series. Really great music rhythm game series, and that's DJ Max Technica Tune for the PS Vita. This is a North American version. And yeah, this is a really fantastic music rhythm game series. I mean, I really hope more people kind of look into the DJ Max series because I feel it's a really underrated music rhythm game series. There's some on the PSP. It's like a series that's gigantically popular in arcades, especially within the Asian region. I feel like stateside, a lot of people don't know about the series, but it's a huge series in like the Asian region. And this is actually a Korean developed game, so a lot of the music in here is like K-pop stuff. It's got like this couple songs from, I'm assuming, a pretty popular K-pop band, but a huge variety of music. It ranges from upbeat pop to like heavy trance and electronica and stuff like that. This version in particular is heavily touchscreen based, which is very different from like the kind of Guitar Hero-esque format of the rest of the DJ Max games. So this one has like on the screen these kind of lines that move, and then as these lines move you kind of have to tap these notes as the line passes over the notes. And like typical music rhythm game, there's various hold notes and kind of like slide notes that you have to do. Just really addicting, really fun, just great presentation too. So really awesome music rhythm game series. I really hope more people check out the DJ Max series. Really fantastic music rhythm game series, so that's really cool. And next is a game that kind of came out of nowhere for me because I had no idea this game was getting a physical release, and the only way I found out about it is some people I follow on Instagram like started posting pictures of that, and I'm like, is that the North American version? I'm like, I had no idea that it even came out. And turns out it was just like a really under the radar release, so I had to pick this up. It was only $20 brand new, and it's a game I've been wanting to play for a very long time, but I just never got around to like downloading it. And thankfully part of that too was because I was holding out for a physical release for this game, because in Europe they had a physical release for this game, and I was like, man, I hope one day we get a physical release for this game stateside, and we did very recently, which I didn't even know about, so I had to pick it up. And that's Child of Light for the PS Vita. This is actually the physical release for Child of Light, which kind of came out of nowhere for me. As soon as I heard about this, I had to snag it up because I've been wanting to play Child of Light for a really long time. It looks like a really charming, adorable, kind of like lighthearted RPG and stuff like that, with incredible presentation. Like the visuals in here, the artwork is just absolutely fantastic. So if you're interested in the physical copy for Child of Light, you can get this on PS Vita. It actually comes on a physical Vita card too, so really cool. It only costs $20, so definitely look into it if you're interested in having a physical copy. You know me, like anytime I could get a physical copy over digital, I definitely prefer that. I don't want to see physical copies die off. And next I have some DS games that I was able to pick up for a couple bucks a piece. This first one is one I've been wanting for a while because I'm a huge puzzle game fan, and I've always wanted to check out this kind of series. It's available on multiple platforms, but this is the DS version here. And that's Mr. Driller Drill Spirits. And this is a really fun kind of like, I would say puzzle game, but it's almost a little bit less so like a puzzle game. It's more of this concept of you're drilling downwards with this character like all the time, and like anytime you drill like chunks of like certain colors, it'll get rid of like that whole section of colors. But your main goal, less so than like, you know, kind of moving blocks and stuff like that, like a typical puzzle game, is like navigating through this kind of puzzle environment to get to the bottom of the stage, and then you're trying to do that within the fastest time and rack up the highest score like that. And there's other various modes in here. There's like an interesting mode where you fight like this kind of drill monster, like boss fight kind of thing, and you have to like charge up shots and stuff like that. There's various characters to use, and there's various other modes, but really charming game, and I was quite addicted to it. It's really fun, so that's a really cool game. And the next two DS games I actually have to share for you guys are actually still brand new. I just unfortunately haven't gotten around to checking them out, but I couldn't pass them up for a couple bucks each. This first one was one I was really happy to find because I'm a big fan of the series. The series in Japan is called the Kunio-kun series, or one of the most popular ones in the series that we got stateside. That's pretty popular and honestly one of my all-time favorite NES games. I love this game with a passion, and that's River City Ransom. River City Ransom is one of my honestly all-time favorite games. Like, I just think it's just so fantastic. One of my favorite NES games. I never really talked about that, but I'm also a big fan of the River City series in general, or the Kunio-kun series. There's tons of other games in the series, and a lot of the fun ones are like the sports games. The sports games in the series are so much fun. And there were a couple that came out on DS here, and this is one of them, and I'm really happy to finally find this, and that's River City Super Sports Challenge. So this is a really fun looking kind of sports kind of compilation kind of game. It looks like a kind of party game that has various modes and stuff like that, and just looks really good, and looks like it still has some fighting in it which is really interesting. But seriously, anytime you can check out some of these River City sports games, they're just so much fun. I believe one of them's like Nintendo World Cup, for example. That's a kind of Kunio-kun series game. And just the sports games like the Super Dodgeball is fantastic. I absolutely love Super Dodgeball. It's just, God, I love Super Dodgeball. And there's a Dodgeball one on the DS too, and I want to get that too. But I'm really happy to find this River City Super Sports Challenge. The kind of unknown fact about me is I'm a huge fan of the River City series, or the Kunio-kun series. So really happy to get this for a couple bucks. I can't wait to check this out. And the next DS game is just one of those DS games that I know a lot of people talk about. I just haven't gotten around to picking up on the DS, and it's a Nintendo game actually. And I don't know how good I'm gonna do at this game because I really do suck at maintaining rhythm, which I know is weird because I really enjoy music rhythm games. But there's something about like music rhythm games like this in particular, I don't really have like a distinct kind of signifier of when to hit the note. So for example, games like Space Channel 5 in this game here, it's like whenever there's like not a distinct kind of timing for me, I struggle so hard. Like, I'm so bad at Space Channel 5, it's not even funny. I just have no rhythm, I guess. So I'm curious to see how I do at this game, and that is Rhythm Heaven. A pretty popular DS game, and it's definitely a game you can find on the cheaper end, brand new, usually most times. But it looks really fun though. I hope I can do somewhat decent at it. It looks like it's a kind of party game. It's got various kind of little mini games to play, and it's all based around rhythm, obviously. There's also a Wii version too, but I've still heard that like everyone's favorite is the DS version. So there's Rhythm Heaven, so let's see how bad, or maybe not bad, I do at the game. And next was a really big release for me in the month of March, and probably one of my biggest pickups this month for sure. And it was a game I was really looking forward to because I really enjoyed what I played of the original version back then. And it's a game that came out way back when, and I patched it with the English fan translation. I absolutely adored what I played. And I played through this again. I actually beat it, and my feelings have not changed. I still think this is an absolutely fantastic game in the series. It's very different, yes. Very different for the series, but it's a spin-off, and that's what spin-offs are usually like. They're very different for the series, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of take into account when really delving into this game. But that is Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, the collector's edition. This is for PS4 here. It was also available on the Xbox One, and this was a Square Enix online store exclusive. But if you want to learn more about the contents of this set in particular, I've done an unboxing on that, so you can check that out. But to delve into the actual game of Final Fantasy Type 0, it's a spin-off of the Final Fantasy series that takes a very mature and dark twist for the series. It's an action RPG at its core, but it blends various other elements that I think are really necessary, and I think it blends all those elements beautifully. It's part school sim, so you spend a lot of the time kind of in the school environment because they are cadets, so they're cadets, they go to academy, and you kind of have to like study to kind of power up and stuff like that, and tons and tons of side quests to do and interactions to kind of interact with all your fellow cadets and get kind of bonus scenes and stuff like that. There's a lot going on in the school setting, and that's really interesting. And the other part is there's also a kind of real-time strategy element, and I actually really like that, because here's why. The story of this game is honestly like a war story. Like, that's basic premise of this game, is like a very traditional kind of war story. It's about empires doing battle and competing for regions, and call me a sucker for like old school history and stuff like that. I absolutely love stories like that, like just really grounded war stories, you know, empires doing battle against each other. So the real-time strategy elements are actually really at home in this game, because I can't think of a better way to kind of, you know, encapsulate that sense of conquering other cities and like expanding an empire than like a real-time strategy. And the way it's done in here really does give you that sense that the Dominion in here is actually conquering territory, that you're conquering cities, and that you can go back to these cities, interact with people. It's just so incredibly in-depth. This game is just so incredibly in-depth. And obviously the core part of this game is honestly the action RPG elements, which I think are just done so well in this game. The action RPG elements are just so spot on, so much fun. All the cadets that you get to play as of Class 0 just have various variety to them. They all play in a really distinct different style, and they all kind of have their advantages and disadvantages in certain situations, and it's just really fun to kind of play around with all the different party members and power them up and stuff like that. You can also go in an overworld and you can interact and go to towns that you've either conquered previously and kind of revisit, and then in those towns they have various shops and stuff like that, or even other additional side quests. In the overworld you'll get like random encounters and stuff like that, and there's even like some small dungeons interspersed in there. And here are just some notes to take into account when really getting into Final Fantasy Type 0. It's one of those RPGs that you really have to commit to. It's got to be like the only RPG you're playing, because to like just dabble in this game would be really doing an injustice to this game. Because the more you get into this game, the more this game just does not let up. The story gets so intense towards the end. The climax is just so twisted, and like I did not see it coming, and I might have shed a tear towards the ending of this game. It was really powerful, and that's what I think is so beautiful about this game, is that it's a basic war story, but yet even in the reality of war you have darkness in war. So obviously the game, the overtone, very dark, very mature. There's a lot of dark motifs in here, but even within the darkness of war you still have the lightness of war, and there's light elements in war. And part of that is reflected in the school sim of like everyday interactions and this kind of light-hearted banter within this really dark overtone and this really dark setting. Is just so beautifully done. And the gameplay is just so freaking phenomenal. It's just one of those where it's just so much fun to play. And this game is just so in-depth. And yes, the visuals could have been significantly better, but Square Enix wasn't going to put in the effort to remaster this game completely, let's be honest. I kind of knew that and expected that, because I think one of the biggest factors to remember about this game is that it originally was a PSP game, and I think that's how more people should look at it, is not so much that the game looks bad, but the other way around. Is picture this game running on the PSP. When I played it on the PSP, it was one of the most visually impressive games I had ever seen, and one of the biggest games content-wise I had ever seen. And for example, I don't know if this is the only PSP game, I'm probably sure there's a couple other, but this game was so big on the PSP, for those who don't know, that was actually 2 UMDs on the PSP, and that was unheard of. I never heard of a PSP game that had multiple UMDs. But man, like, to sum up everything in like my, I guess, kind of mini review here of Final Fantasy Type 0, it's a game you have to go into with a particular mindset. It's different from the series. It's an action RPG with blended other elements of other genres that's just done so well. Typical war story kind of setting that's just so dark and so grounded in reality, but still has that Final Fantasy kind of element to it. And even within this big kind of branching story, there's tons of trickling like little side stories that come down from this bigger side story. Everything's kind of interweaved later on, and it kind of makes sense towards the end of the game. But just a really awesome game, really awesome action RPG, and just a really awesome game. And this is when I think Square Enix is at their best, is when they take a chance, when they actually take a chance and really drastically do something different. So this is a fantastic game that I just think people need to have a more open mind about when going into it. And by the way, I did play the Final Fantasy 15 demo. I'm not going to talk about that because it's really not worth talking about, but that's pretty much my thoughts on Final Fantasy Type 0. And really quickly, I want to cover these 2 NS American Limited Editions I picked up that I unfortunately just haven't had the time to play these games yet, because I was so committed to playing Final Fantasy Type 0 and honestly got really addicted with Type 0. But the first game we have here is the Awakened Fate Ultimatum Limited Edition from NS America. This is a sequel to the Guided Fate Paradox, which is a very quirky, kind of traditional roguelike, and I really liked the Guided Fate Paradox. I thought it was really interesting in a lot of different kind of regards, but really interested in checking this out eventually. And the other limited edition I have here is the limited edition for Atelier Shelley Alchemist of the Dust Sea on the PS3. This is a finale for the Dust trilogy, and this limited edition and the other limited edition for Awakened Fate Ultimatum I've done unboxings for, so if you're interested in the contents you can check those out. But I'm a pretty big fan of the Atelier series. I'm really interested in checking this out sometime. And the final game I had to share for you guys is actually a PS1 RPG, and this is one of those RPGs that I know I can't believe I haven't played this game, but man, I've been wanting to play this game for such a long time, and it's just one of those things, you know, we all have those games that, you know, we just haven't gotten around to, and this is certainly one of those games for me. But I feel like there's a lot of mixed feelings on this game for sure. I feel like this is one of those games where there is no kind of in-between. I feel like you either really like this game or you really don't like this game. And I think there's a lot of multitude of factors that go into that. But I'm definitely still really interested in checking this game out finally, and that's Chrono Cross. Yes, I know I haven't played Chrono Cross. I'm a terrible RPG gamer. But I just missed out on this game, and I've always wanted to check it out. It looks good to me, and one thing I've always heard, like, despite whether you hate this game or love this game, I've heard the music is phenomenal. I've listened to some of the music, and it really is, like, really exceptional stuff here from Square back then. But really interested in checking this out. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings, but still really excited to check this out. And the final pickup I have here is actually a little promotional item. I forgot to include it in the recent pickups before, but I did get the Super Smash Bros. Soundtrack from Club Nintendo. This was a promotional kind of giveaway thing where if you registered both Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS and Wii U, you got the Smash Bros. Soundtrack, and it's a nice 2-disc set with about 72 tracks total. And it's really good. It's got a lot of like mixes, like those original mixes that you hear in the Smash Bros. Games, and some of those really creative medleys that they have for some of those series. And unfortunately, not every like character in the game of Smash Bros. Has like a song represented on here. Unfortunately, that's one of my small nitpicks. But for the most part, it's a really great album. A lot of great Nintendo stuff and really great variety, so really cool to have this. And that'll pretty much do it, guys, for my recent pickups for the month of March. As always, be sure to let me know what you guys picked up recently in the month of March, or what you guys are playing recently. Always interested in hearing that. I always love that. But as always, guys, thank you for watching so much, and thank you so much for your continued support. It really means a lot to me. But until next time, guys, please take it easy. Bye, guys.